All right. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? I hope that you are having a fantastic day. It is 63 degrees in Bremerton. I guess summer is over. I actually turned on the heat last night. It got a little chilly for me. Thought we were going to get this warm September, maybe warm October, but seems like it's over. What do you think, Jane? How you doing?
I'm doing well. And as you know, I'm on the East Coast visiting friends and family. And I got to walk on the beach on the Atlantic Ocean this morning. I didn't get
Ooh,
to swimming, but it was just outstanding. Um, the weather out here has been pretty good. Not beach weather for sure, but low 70s. And it's been wonderful catching up with some people I haven't seen in almost 50 years.
oh, that's nice.
Yeah, got to see my old house that I grew up in, and you know a lot of beaches I used to go to, the lake I learned how to swim at, and so that's been fun.
Can you say where you're at, or is it a private location?
Right now I am near the Foxwoods Casino, near North Stonington, Connecticut.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I don't
So
know why I was thinking you were in Jersey for some reason.
no, I went in Maine, and then I got a sister, and oh, that was beautiful. I spent about 3 days up there on a lake. My sister has a little cabin, and then we went to this great, huge hippie fair out in Unity, Maine. It was,
Mm.
and then I have another sister who lives outside of Boston, and then I was down in Connecticut for the past few days visiting high school friends and playing at the beach and just having fun. So
Oh,
it's a
nice.
really good way to just get ready for the winter.
Feel like you're gonna come back restored,
Yep, I
full of
do.
energy, ready to go.
I do. And then, I have been getting high school friends and council stuff done. I went to the finance committee via Zoom the other day, and but I didn't go to council because I forgot it was a 3 hour difference, and it's like it'd be like 11:30 at night before it was over, at
Oh,
least.
yeah, yeah.
So
It
I did.
wasn't too long.
I bowed out of that, but I sent in some public comments to let them know what my feelings were on a couple of issues.
Well, you know what? I have to confess, I was double duty on Wednesday, so although I broadcasted it, I missed it. I didn't get to hear what happened, so we don't even get to talk about the study session. So we will talk about it next month. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, maybe I can ask Jane about what happened in the study session," but we both missed it.
Well, I can tell you what happened the week before. Um, Finally, it is now illegal in Bremerton to park in marked bike lanes, which
Mm,
surprisingly is not a state law. I mean, different cities have enacted it. And, we had that problem on Washington Avenue in the
yeah.
loading zone where people would park all night long and stuff and rack up tickets. But that at least is not going to be allowed anymore. And the city's put some temporary traffic control up there, so that's safer for bicycle riders and pedestrians. So
Nice. Yeah. I know one of my employees lives on Washington and is definitely impacted by the parking up there.
yeah, and then on Lower Washington, you know, um, just after the Manette Bridge, the folks in that neighborhood wanted basically private parking. They wanted a parking zone where nobody could even park for 2 hours, like all over town. There's all these areas that are impacted mostly by the shipyard, but other things too, where if you're not a resident, you can only park for 2 hours, right? And the folks on Lower Washington wanted it 24/7, that only residents could park. But uh, that did not pass.
Well, let me ask you some questions about that because, I learned a lot in that particular city council meeting And I know some of the residents came forward and spoke. And I think it was you who were saying, that's public parking. You're not entitled to the parking spot in front of your house. It's just kind of a social norm that folks have adopted. But we do
Right.
get frustrated when people do park right in front of our house. Um, and so that's an education. I don't think maybe they knew that. I know I didn't. But what is some of the solutions that city council is looking into to ensure that those folks do have parking? Some of the folks were talking about, being women late at night, having to park several blocks away. I think there was a potential solution of offering a discounted parking in the parking garage. Um,
But I drove through after that meeting, and there were 12 empty parking spots at 9
mm,
o'clock. And then some of the other council members, um, I guess at the study session this past week where they took action, said that they had driven down multiple times and there was always like a minimum of 6 to a dozen spots. So I'm sure they're highly impacted, like at Bridge Blast and,
mhm.
maybe Blackberry Festival, but that still seems like kind of a long hike for somebody who doesn't want to pay at the parking garage. 'Cause it's not like the parking garage is that expensive. So I'm sure there are some times that they're impacted, but like where I live, behind the high school, when the team is winning, I can't park in front of my house. I mean, usually there's a lot of extra cars there, or sometimes when the college has something big going on and they overflow. So, yeah, there's no guarantee that anybody can park in front of their house, let alone their street. I mean, like when you get a residential parking permit, it's not just good for your street, it's good for 2 blocks in any direction, too. So let's say if you live on High Avenue and there's no parking available for you on High, you can park on 8th or 9th or, the Ohio, the opposite streets, Veneta. So there's no guarantee for anybody.
Bailey says, I love you too.
Hey, Bailey.
Shout
Um,
out to Bailey. So is the proposal to so I live right across the street from Olympic College and we are on permitted parking. So I get 2 parking spots and then I get a visitor pass, which is good for every 14 days. So is that the proposal there?
yeah, it's 2 per household and then visitor passes. So like some of those um, units down there have been converted. I mean, they were all single family houses to begin with.
Mhm.
And some of them have more. So, like one of the neighbors that came and talked, I guess she's got an apartment now in her house. So she goes, she gets 2, her tenant gets 2, and then they get 2 visitor spots. So that's like 6 spots right there.
Right.
And so, you hope that she's not using all of those, but I guess there's a possibility
Well, I tell you
that,
that hopefully that will help them. It helped us before that was really kind of put in action. All the students would park on our street and it was hard to find parking. But within, I don't know, several months, I would say, there's always parking on our street now.
yeah,
Always.
people get a couple tickets typically and they learn.
Let me ask you one other question, Jane. I have a neighbor and I love my neighbor. He doesn't do it anymore, but when I first moved in 8 years ago, almost 9 years now, he would park his vehicle in his driveway on the street. So he didn't like people to turn around in his driveway and turn around because I'm on a dead end.
Uh huh.
And so is that legal to block your own driveway?
Like, I, well, people shouldn't be turning around in a private driveway. If that's
So once you go past the sidewalk, then that's private property.
Typically, yeah.
Got you. Okay, okay. Yeah, so if you know where I live, right?
No, I'm not sure which house yours is.
So I'm right on the same street as the Olympic College Res Hall. And
Okay.
so it's a dead end, right? And so we're at the front of the block, and so you gotta go all the way down and do a U-turn and then come back out. Like, we have our own roundabout kind of at the end of this, it's a cul-de-sac, really. Um, and so then you turn around and then you go out, and so people in the front would turn into his driveway and turn back around, and it's late at night, and their headlights would flash into their living room, so he would park his truck there. But
Yep.
now the block pretty much understands, like, please don't, I almost said his name, don't turn into his house. Um, but
Yeah,
so that is private property.
yeah, that's private property. Your driveway is private property. Typically, the property line is 1 foot behind the sidewalk, but not always.
Got it.
But yeah,
So someone could drive onto the sidewalk and back out that way if they wanted.
they could.
Okay.
But yeah, I get that with, I wouldn't want somebody's headlights in my living room or bedroom
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, if he's parking in that way, as long as he's not blocking the sidewalk itself so that pedestrians can still freely walk on the sidewalk.
No, no, he parked on the street, just literally just blocking the driveway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And I bet other people have had that experience, so I'm glad you're able to answer that for me
Yeah.
or for us.
Now, the one thing he's got to be careful about is if Impark comes by and sees him blocking a driveway,
Mhm.
could get a ticket because they don't
Oh,
know his driveway.
gotcha, okay.
But if he moves his car dirt, I mean, everybody knows what hours Impark works, so you just make sure you don't.
Well, we see OC security more than Impark.
Oh, do you?
Mhm. Yeah, they're constantly doing their, safety check, so very diligent.
So, how much do they charge students for parking pass at OC? Do you know?
Ooh, I don't remember. I thought you got free parking with registration?
I thought you did too. So that's weird that they would choose not to, or maybe they get 2 feet closer to the door that they're going in. Who knows? People are really weird about parking.
Well, and when it was a problem, this was when the building was still erected on
Yeah.
that corner, so now that, there's more parking, that probably resolved the issue as well.
Yeah, when they were building that building, I live behind the high school, and whoever put in the temporary power pole for the college did it wrong, and we
Mm,
would lose power all the time. And I would write into PSE, I think you put that temporary power, you didn't connect it right, and they would just kind of laugh at me, and say, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then one day when it was out for like the fifth time in 2 weeks, I walked up to the repair guy and told him that. And he went down and he did something, and we've never lost power on that street again.
oh, wow.
So when you have a feeling that, you know, something has changed, make sure you keep pressing the people in charge of it, because a lot of times people won't believe you. Is And it's important. I mean, because we live in this community, for years and years, and so we notice different problems that are arising, and it might be that your neighborhood floods all the time, and it's because your catch basin is full of debris. So, make sure you call and tell somebody, or use your Brem One app, because the city's not going to know if you don't let them know. I mean, they try to do their maintenance, but it's always helpful if, when we see something as residents, that we bring it to their attention in that way.
Well, Jane, let me ask you a question. I do horrible of advocating for myself because I'm always advocating for others, but I've had a problem since I moved in here, and I don't know whose responsibility it is. I'm a renter, and we have the power lines that are going through a tree that is on this property. The tree is dying. It's in bad shape, but it is so tangled in with the tree. It looks like one, a fire hazard, but two, a big windstorm will just knock out power to everyone. And the argument is, well, it's the homeowner's responsibility. Then other folks say it's the city's responsibility. Comcast says it's not their responsibility. So it's a huge problem and it's getting worse. Where do I go?
Okay, so this is a tree that's on private property. This is the line that comes from the power pole to the house.
Uh-huh.
That's the private property owner's responsibility.
No. Let me correct that. It's not the power line that's coming to the house. It's the power line that's going down the street to give power to everyone else.
Oh, so that's PSE.
That's PSE?
Yep. So
Okay.
they're the ones that trim. So if they're power lines, so it's going from one power pole to the next.
Yep.
Okay. So that's definitely PSEs.
So I can use the Bremerton One app for that?
No, because the city doesn't own those lines. PSE owns them.
So I need to call them directly.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, thank you, Jane. 8 years. A straight answer. That's huge.
PSE is coming around doing work too in the city, and I think they're going to be in our area next because all the light bulbs
Mhm.
in street lights, they're changing them out to lower energy usage light bulbs, right?
Gotcha.
So, and then in a few places, they're adding some lighting too, adding additional ones. So they should be coming through. And when they do that, whoever scouts it out for them, they'll
Mhm.
usually note things like that the tree needs to be trimmed or removed. So, they'll trim around the wires. But
Okay.
then if it's a street tree, then in the end, the city may have to be the one to remove it if the city owns the tree. Because
Gotcha.
some street trees the city owns, some of them it's the adjacent property owner owns. And and I don't know
It's
which
like
is,
a spider web into those wires. I'm
yeah.
surprised we have electricity now, honestly.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have a fire.
Wait, knock on wood.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, there's that. So any other questions about who owns what? I'm pretty knowledgeable about stuff like that because I worked as an inspector for 30 years, a short, for about 6, 7 years in Bremerton. But then I worked for the city of Bellevue and the city of Seattle and up in Port Townsend. So I have a pretty rounded education in that stuff. Are you still there, Marwan?
Yes, I'm still here. We have a
Okay.
question in the chat from Faye Flemister. She
Oh,
says, could cameras be used for chronic speeders in neighborhoods? Your thoughts?
we are allowed to put up cameras now in school zones. I'm not sure if we can do it on neighborhood streets, but I'm really trying hard to encourage our engineering division to start implementing more traffic calming measures. There's a lot of low cost things that can be done that really reduces speeds. And right now they're writing a new manual on traffic calming, and hopefully they publish it soon, um, because they're all over the country. Every city's got one of different things you can do. But I went up to Victoria and looked at some of the inexpensive things they did. A lot of it just with paint
Mm,
to narrow the street visually for car drivers. But the cameras, I think we can only do them like in school zones and, you know, near fire departments, that sort of thing. But we can't just throw them in everywhere, and they're expensive to maintain. And that's why we can't, because none of the companies that maintain those cameras will do one in a place that they're not going to make a lot of money off of,
Gotcha.
because they get a certain percentage. Let's say you get a ticket at a red light camera, say at Warren and 11th. I think that ticket's around $150. I'm not positive.
Woo.
Probably the city gets 40 of it, and the rest of it goes to the company that.
40? Only 40?
Yeah, it's really low what the city gets.
Wow.
Very low.
That's
Now,
a little upsetting to hear.
well, it saves lives. So that's why we do it. Because, I mean, tickets don't really generate money for the city. Even though, you got people who chronically park where they shouldn't. So they rack up, 20, 30 parking tickets a year.
Mm-hmm.
It costs us probably almost as much just to process it. Like if somebody decides they want to go to court and contest it, it costs more than what the city would have gotten, you know?
Well,
So,
let me ask you this. Could we request a speed bump to be installed? Is that expensive? Is that
well, right now they have criteria. So it depends where it is. And right now they have so many requests, and they claim that all the requests they have is going to take a couple years to build them all. They're not
okay?
super expensive. We don't set aside a lot of money for them, because residential streets, there's no grant money
Mm,
anywhere. Like arterials, there's different grants that you can get, but everything else on residential streets comes directly out of local funds. And
okay.
one of those local funds is the $20 fee that they put on our registration of vehicles. So the city can raise that without a vote to $40 a vehicle. And I've looked into it, and I asked our city attorney if there was a way we could do that where it wouldn't hurt our lower income folks so much. Like if your car is over 10 years old or over 15 years, that you wouldn't have to pay it. And she says there's not a way to do that, but I'd like to look in that more, because when we have our crews do stuff instead of contractors,
Mm-hmm.
it's so much cheaper. It's unbelievably cheaper. Like an ADA ramp, our crews can build one probably for about $4,000, right? And that's with waiting around for concrete trucks and everything. Well, if we hire a contractor, it's like $25,000. And frankly,
Wow.
our crews do a way better job. We have really, really good concrete crews in the city. They're excellent work. So I would like to see a way that we can locally get some more funding so that we can do more maintenance, like more sidewalks, more chip sealing, a little bit more asphalt paving, although that's real expensive too. Just filling potholes and cleaning ditches and all those sorts of things that we really don't have enough staff to do. And if we hired like two more people, we could have double the amount of crews, because you have to have so many people on a crew, and you have to have somebody to do the traffic control. You have to have somebody, forming the concrete work, pouring the concrete. That takes a couple, three guys. So if you don't have a big enough crew, or if it's too big, you're not saving any money. So I would like to at least investigate more about raising that car tab fee so we could do more traffic calming, and just in neighborhood streets, not on the arterials. but just strictly neighborhood streets.
Could the neighborhood or that particular residents on that street crowdsource it and say, "Hey, we got 4 grand, city, can you come and put in a speed bump for us?"
I don't know. I think part of the thing is that this sort of becomes, no, not sort of, it becomes a real equity issue
Yeah.
because all of a sudden, and I'm not trying to denigrate any neighborhood, but maybe Dockside would put in speed bumps everywhere, and yet the folks who live in a less wealthy neighborhood still have to put up with it. Like,
Mhm.
why, you know? It's like, well, you get speeders because you don't have any money.
Right.
So I really wouldn't want to go down that path, I don't think.
Well, maybe there could be a way of saying, "Hey, if you're paying for it, then it would have to be a trade-off." So everyone that could afford to pay for it would have to be matched by a neighborhood or a street that couldn't.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
You know, just throwing some stuff out there. Because that's where the solutions are is through the conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's not a bad idea. I mean, they might not work out, but it's like we got to throw them all out there until we can figure out which ones stick and which ones might work.
Well, and you're saying something really important. I think a lot of folks don't understand how government works. Uh, and so having the discussions in open instead of just being told kind of like a parent to a child, well, because I said so. Well, you can't do that. Well, why? Why can't we do that? And is there something that we could change? And when people understand that, uh, it's just better for everybody.
Well, the more people write into city council or show up at meetings, the better. And I know it's really difficult. You got kids you're trying to feed dinner to and get something done around your house because you've been at work all day, or your mom's sick and you're taking care of her. I know it's difficult to go to meetings. Um, but you can also put in comments on the Brem One app, but sending emails is really the best way if you can't come in person.
And I can attest that it does work because you get a read receipt that they received your email, and depending on what you've written, they may even talk about it in study session or in city council, and you'll know because you said it. It was in your letter, your
Right.
email. So it does work.
So the way it goes, I want to make sure people know why sometimes they don't get a written response. When you send a letter in, if you send it to city.council, our legislative aide, she's the one who goes through all of our emails because sometimes there's like a lot of spam. So she gets rid of that. Then she sends it to all council members. And so I reply to the ones that are in my district because more than 3 council members cannot have a conversation about anything unless we're sitting in council chambers together.
Wow.
It's called a quorum.
Mhm.
So it'd be a breach of quorum, like if 4 of us wrote you back. It's like, no, you can't share ideas in that manner. We're only supposed to share ideas at our committee meetings, which only 3 council members are allowed to attend, or at study sessions or council meetings. So, but study session is really where we talk it out. Like, we have a couple people who have been to council meetings and complain because often our votes are unanimous. And it's like, you don't even think about it. It's like, well, we thought about it at the study session.
Mhm.
And that's why, it's on the consent calendar because we all agreed it's something that can just move forward, you know. So, if you have a concern, if you can just read what the agenda is and send in an email, especially before study session, so that we can really have a good conversation about your concerns. So,
And also to remind folks that if you do want to speak at city council but can't come and want to do it via Zoom, you need to send a request 24 hours before city council.
Yep. And that's because some horrible, racist, mean people called in and just said horrific things about a lot of our community members. So we will not take those kind of calls anymore.
And I forgot to do it last week, so I couldn't speak last week. And you and I had spoke, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna do it. And I got distracted, and it was like, oh, it's Wednesday. It was like, oh my goodness.
Well, that's all right. I read your letter, and then
And you advocated for it. I think that's a good segue into the next topic.
Okay.
Can you see my screen? I just wanted to show you. I just took a picture outside so you can see what that looks like. Can you see the tree there into the wires?
Nope. All I can see is.
All right. So after this is over, just go back. We are at 31 minutes. Go to 31 minutes and just take a look at it and you'll see it.
Okay. I will take a look.
But it's pretty crazy. So but anyway, so that particular letter that I sent in was everyone knows, we won't go back over the whole thing, but the REACT was created from the issue with the murder of George Floyd. It got disbanded because it wasn't legally formed correctly. And so those that were against it typically find those types of ways to dismantle those things. It got dismantled. There were some panels. They went out to the community, and this was the way forward. And now there was a DEI position, and the proposal on the table was to make it a manager position or a director's position. And many of us in the community wanted it to be the higher up director position, but we lost that 4-2 with you voting on our side and President Chamberlain voting on our side, and the other 4 voted against. And then I think one person wasn't present, but I don't remember who that was.
Yeah, I don't think Eric was in town that day. But I do want to say we had some pretty long discussions. And so I felt, because, I mean, the city hired a consultant who went out into the community after REACT was disbanded and asked what the community felt was needed to have their voices heard in city government and in hiring, and because it hasn't been. And so the community members who attended those meetings were very strong in saying that they felt it needed to be a director level position, because they wanted to make sure it wasn't somebody who was just shuffled off in the back and that we had just checked a box, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So when this position has been like waiting to be filled for 2 years now. So before I came on council, they voted for it to be a manager position. And that was before they'd gone out to the community and done the surveys about what community members wanted. And they put money in for a manager level position. So here it comes back, and the community says, no, we want a director level position. And I get it. I mean, it should be, I want to make sure that this person is sitting at the table whenever there's a mayor's meeting, you know, an executive level meeting, so that this person can advise the rest of the department heads, you know, to look at it via how community members of all, you know, especially the BIPOC community, how they would be looking at this decision, because all of our directors are white men, except for, let's see, the city attorney is a woman. I think that's it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have a majority female council, but there's nobody of color sitting on council, you know. It's just a bunch of folks thinking they know what the whole community is saying, and I'm trying to hear what the community is saying, and I hope people keep writing in about what your thoughts are, and how you would like things to change, and how the hiring processes need to be modified to make sure that, number one, I want more local people, especially younger people of color, to get jobs at the city, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the way it's set up, sometimes they'll be requiring a 4-year degree. Well, I don't have a 4-year degree. I don't even have a 2-year degree. I went through a program to learn how to be an inspector. You know, it's had pretty good school, but even still, you know, it's not a 4-year degree. There's different ways that people can get an education and learn things. And that's what I'm trying to push the city towards, not just checking the box. And they're like, well, you know, we do right, or other experience. But we all know if you get 10 applicants and 9 of them have a 4-year college degree and one doesn't, well, the one that doesn't is getting tossed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Unless they are super exceptional.
yeah, you know.
So
So we'll see.
Jane, my concern was, and we're definitely going to talk next on how people can get in touch with you and how important it is to make their voice heard, and how you make yourself available through your meetings and coming here on the conduit, on top of being available through email, through city council email. Um, my concern with it not being a manager or a director position was the conversation of going back a year or the next year after that and saying to the mayor, hey, they need more money. They need it to be, this position needs to have more teeth, and not having the political will to do that. So I felt like we should try to get as much as we can now. We already have budget constraints. I mean, if we can't do speed bumps, we might have a
Yeah,
problem. You know what I mean? And so
I.
that was my issue there,
Mhm.
with that, and I think that's also gonna be coming up with an election time for the mayor position, and that could be kind of a third rail conversation that neither candidate's really gonna wanna wade into. Um, so I would have rather
It's
seen it be a director position.
it's going to be a really interesting election year, because we got 4 positions for city council are up for election, and then our mayor. So there's a lot of
A
opportunity
lot.
for people who want to get more involved. I don't know who. I know that 2 people have declared for mayor already. Um, I don't know if anybody has declared for council yet. And once you declare, then you have to pay. So, but it's not that expensive.
So
I mean,
don't declare, say you are exploring. If that's the case, just don't make a definitive statement unless you know you're absolutely gonna do it.
yeah, because I think once you declare, I think you only have like 10 days to go in and sign.
That sounds about right. And so is it all the odd districts that are up for election?
Yes,
District 1, 3, 5, and 7?
yes.
I'll put that in the chat.
And District 7 right now, every time there's a census, they redraw the district lines, and it takes about a year after the census for them to do that, maybe a year and a half. So there's actually 2 council people who live in District 6 because the lines are redrawn, and nobody who lives in District 7.
Wow.
So yeah, we please, if you're at all interested in being on council or being the mayor, um, talk to people who are already there and ask them. And I'm more than willing to help almost anybody. Not,
Well, we might get to that too today.
if there's people who are interested in getting into political office, I certainly would help them, especially District 7, where we have to get somebody who lives there on council.
And are the requirements you need to have been a resident in that district for a year? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yes, a full year.
Gotcha. A
And,
calendar year.
well, the filing week is the first week of May.
Okay.
So you have to have lived there from like May 5th of 2024 to file this May.
Gotcha. So that may be you. If it's not you, you may know someone, one of your neighbors, or a friend that lives in a district that is up for election. Have that conversation with them. I have a saying. Well, it's not my saying. Power is taken is not given. It's one thing to ask for people to do things. It's another thing for you to be the decision maker in the room, um, and explore it. It seems like it's really scary. I had no idea what I was doing and ran last year, right? And it was really close. So,
Yep.
do it. And don't think that I'm not the person and I'm not qualified, like Jane was saying in regards to education, right? You care about your community and you want to see some changes, then that's your qualification. And you'll
Hmm.
learn a lot of it is, on the job training.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's a lot of additional training that's offered for free for you to learn. There's a lot of
Robert's
rules.
rules, which I still don't understand.
Neither do I, so it's okay.
It's like I sit on a few boards and it's like I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for a few years now. You still don't know? No, I don't.
Yep.
And I don't really care to, honestly. And it's like,
Me either. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, and I've figured out what I have to know, I think.
let's resort to that if it starts to become unruly.
Yes.
Otherwise, let's have a conversation and talk and see if we can't get to where we're at. Sometimes I think some rules and procedures are in place and it's just an obstruction to the process.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. I I think a lot of rules have been in place so that the people who are rulers can stay rulers,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, we talked about DEI, and that kind of flows right into you making yourself available to your constituents. You do a monthly meeting, which you're going to now change to every other month, but
Hmm.
you want to increase the participation of people coming and saying, "Hey, what are your ideas? What are your concerns? What guest speakers do you want to come to attendance?" But I'll let you speak for yourself. Um, Tell people what you need, how they can help themselves.
Okay, so I have been doing a monthly at the high school, and I've had the chief of police, the fire chief, I've had our finance director, I've had public works, a couple different people from there come in, talk about, we have a lot of changes coming up in our comprehensive plan. So we've talked about that. We've talked about Sixth Street bicycle lanes, um, but there's not a whole lot of people who attend. And currently, it's from 5 to 6:30 on a Wednesday or Thursday evening. I'm sorry. And it was at the high school, but the rules kind of changed there. So now it's going to be at Bremerton Food Line. And I'm excited about that. They're doing a lot of great work, and I want more members of the community to see what they're doing because they always need volunteers, number one. But it's just amazing. And I just sent them a letter of support for this new community garden that they're going to put in. So all around, along 12th Street, they're putting in raised beds, and they're having students, special needs students, and other students come and learn about agriculture, and they're going to plant all sorts of vegetables and flowers that they'll be given to the community at the food bank. And so, we're going to have elders teaching kids how to plant things and help their neighbors, and I just think it's a great program. So they're trying to get this money from T-Mobile, and hopefully T-Mobile gives them the money for it. But they've got a fairly new board, and they've done a lot of great changes. They make it's a lot more dignified for people to visit the food line, and plus more hours for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that the rules changed at the high school, so that now, I had to find another place. But I want to know what sorts of things the community wants me to bring. And it's not just for people in District 4. Anybody can go. And you don't even have to live in Bremerton if you want to learn more about how things are done here or what you would like to see done. So I would like people to send me requests for what you want to talk about. My next meeting is going to be Thursday, November 21st, I believe. If that's the third Thursday. Yeah, it must be the third Thursday. The week before Thanksgiving. And I think I'm going to have somebody from community development come in, because there's a lot of zoning changes in our district. There's going to be areas where, number one, the new shelter would be available to construct the shelter in our district. I don't think there's any place in downtown or Manette, but I think 5 of the districts have zoning that allows that. There's going to be areas where they can build 65 feet high in our district, which that really wasn't the case. And now there's no single family only zoning. Any neighborhood, you can build a duplex, a triplex, and if you have enough land, you can build a larger multifamily unit, And then they're changing parking requirements. So hopefully parking requirements get changed enough so that more people can convert their garages to ADUs. A lot of people need that extra money. We also need the extra housing, and especially housing that won't be super expensive. Most of my friends and neighbors can't pay $1,900 for a studio downtown.
Right.
But if they had a safe converted garage that, maybe didn't have granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, but still was nice and safe and warm at a reasonable price, I think that's a great thing that could happen in our town. But after that one, I'm not sure what kind of guest speakers folks want, or if it's a terrible time for a lot of people to come. Give me some suggestions. If you think a daytime, maybe every other month we do a daytime meeting and then a nighttime. I'm not sure, but I want the community to tell me how I can help the most with these community meetings.
Yeah, please do that. There's a saying, a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Mm-hmm.
You have to speak up, and I will tell you from broadcasting city council meetings, Jane does advocate and brings those questions forward to council. And I've watched her argue for things that I agreed with, that I asked for, and even if she lost or it was even an unpopular position against the rest of the council. And so again, I appreciate you for that.
Thank
But
you.
she's here for that, right? I mean, that's why she ran. She said, "Hey, I want to run for you, the people, and you are the people. So please make your voice heard." I'm so glad that you are open to folks that don't necessarily live in the district. They may work in the district, they may worship in the district. Their families may live here. So I think that's awesome that it's open to everyone like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and then there's a lot of folks who currently live outside of Bremerton city limits, but maybe they get annexed in and, they want to know more about us before they get annexed in.
For those that don't know what that is, what does being annexed in mean?
So right now, Bremerton city limits end at Rydell when you're going north, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would not believe how many letters we get from folks who think they live in Bremerton, who, because they have a Bremerton address. It's kind of like the post office, just called a huge area Bremerton that wasn't within the city. So at some point, and I don't know exactly when, the city will be, and the county will be asking more people to join us as part of the city. So that would mean that you would pay different taxes, not necessarily more. I think the city charges slightly more than the county, but the county's created the city of Silverdale, even though they're not a city. So right now, if you're not in Silverdale, you're paying to build Silverdale. You know,
Mm.
you
So
know,
everyone north of Rydell who's not in Silverdale is paying to build Silverdale.
for the for the most part, that might be a little simplistic, and I'm sure
That's a pretty wild statement, though. It's like, wow.
but it's true. It's like Silverdale either has to decide to become a city or not. You know, because right now, the folks down in South Kitsap haven't gotten the same sort of support and infrastructure that Silverdale does. And
Mm.
part of what Silverdale does is because of the sub base up there, So a lot of the military folks who move in for 2 years or 10 years or 20 years, they want what Silverdale offers,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, I don't want it, but they want it. You read on Facebook, it's like, oh, Chick-fil-A's coming, and people are so excited. And then they list all these other chain restaurants that they want to come. And, I've lived in Southern California. I I wouldn't mind El Polo Loco, but it doesn't have to be El Polo Loco. I'd rather have like a local family open up a restaurant that cooks chicken that way.
Mm-hmm.
And and you see all these things that are familiar to people who travel around the country. It's kind of like, well, I know what Texas Roadhouse tastes like, so I want that, instead of, gosh, how can we help support this restaurant that is actually cooking great steaks. So I'd rather work to keep our money as local as we can, and support the people who support our Babe Ruth teams and our Pee Wee football and all that, because it's the small businesses that do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, although
So,
I do want T-Mobile to help pay for the improvements at the food bank.
so let me ask you this: if, let's say, Bremerton or people north of Rydell to the mini golf, that's about halfway between here and Silverdale, were
Mm.
annexed into Bremerton, what would be the pros and the cons of them becoming part of Bremerton?
Well, to me, right now, I think police and our police department has better response times than the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department's got a huge swath all over the place that they're covering. So I feel that they would have better protection in that way.
Okay.
We already give them, well, we already sell them water.
Mm.
And they pay more. If you don't live in the city limits, you pay 1.5 times the amount
Wow.
for water. Yeah. So that's a benefit if
Mhm.
and that's got to be at least $500-600 a year extra they're paying if it's based on my water bill.
You know what? And I bet people have no idea. I always thought that, north of Rydell was Bremerton. 'Cause I went to the mayor and I asked him about the, pothole at Bank of America there.
Mhm.
Like, "Oh, that's not Bremerton." It's like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay."
And I think our fire departments, we need to like figure out a better way. Like right now, I personally wouldn't even mind having more of a regional fire department because there's so much overlap. Like we help Central Kitsap, they help us, a lot. But of course, South Kitsap, they're too far away, so their fire department doesn't really help. In
Mm,
theory, the base fire department helps us, but usually they're busy at the shipyard, so I guess they do on occasion help us too. So I think those are some of the benefits of being in the city, and plus more representation. I mean, right now all we have is 3 county commissioners, and they cover a huge area, and they're not allowed to talk to each other because it'd
wow,
be a forum. They can only talk to each other when they're in meetings,
wow.
all 3 of them.
Mhm.
So at least if you were in the city, and we would have, of course, if we annexed all the way up to the old golf course. And I think the plan is actually going even a little bit further north than that, but
Really?
around that area.
Okay.
Um, there would be probably more council districts, or at least they would be divided such that, you would actually have somebody who was always advocating for you. Most of the stuff when I get a resident who's asking for help, in the eyes of the city, it's a really small thing, right? But in the eyes of the resident, it's a big deal, and I don't want to. Let me see if I can think of some without calling out specific. Just like if, say, your neighbor is piling up trash and it
Mhm.
really smells, and you can't
Mm,
enjoy going out your front door, even you have to go out your back door. Well, that's something with code enforcement that we can help with. And it might take a while, but at least if your council member is helping you also, and helping you, look up the code. So it's like, oh, well, code enforcement said they can't do anything. And then your council member can remind code enforcement about a certain rule, and, ask them why they're interpreting it differently.
mhm.
Can That's a big help, I think, of being actual resident of Bremerton. I think the county it's so big, and there's so little representation for residents. I mean, I would never live in the county for that reason. I mean, even if I had a hotline to my um, district rep, I wouldn't do it. I think in the city, if you choose to avail yourself of it, you do have a council who really wants to help.
Mhm. That's fascinating. I wouldn't even consider that. That's really good information for folks, especially if you're thinking about moving. Your lease may be coming to an end, and you're looking for a new place. And I know it's tough right now, so you might not have a lot of options or that luxury. But and I hate to put one more consideration on your plate as to where you're gonna live, but It's something that you definitely need to think about for sure. I'm going to share your information. So if you want to get in touch with Jane, you can email her at jane.rebelowski@ci.bremerton.wa.us, and I'll leave those both up. And then if you want to email city council, all of them in general, it's city.council@ci.bremerton.wa.us. If for some reason you're watching this later and you type into the chat a comment, I will pass that information on to Jane, so she has it. But again, she is your voice, and you need to make your voice heard. And again, appreciate you setting up over at the high school and now over at the food bank. And if you haven't been to the food bank, please check it out. They've done some wonderful things in there. They've
They
set it up like a grocery store so you can shop. Um, just really awesome people up there.
and they're so kind, and they offer, even though it's not on their list of things to do, I've seen them help people find housing. I mean, it's not their main goal, but they know who to call to try to help and advocate for you too. And they know where the other services are, like if you need furniture, if you need clothing, if you know, they will take the time to help you find those things.
What's the ED's name up there?
Uh, Corey Cock.
Korika. She is really doing some work in regards to uh, getting more integrated and making partnerships. I
Yeah.
had a meeting there as a board member for the Salvation Army, and so they're reaching out and building and breaking down silos and finding synergies. And so shout out to her. Yeah, there's definitely some good people doing some great things in here. We got a couple more minutes left. I do want to switch and just go into something else you had brought up, because you talked about the county and county commissioner. Now, it is no great wonder that the Democrats are pushing a write-in, Mr. Dale Riley, and folks in this community know that I would never vote for that person, and I definitely have issues with him. However, I wanted to get your thoughts and take on that, um, and then we'll go from that. Go from there.
So there's convoluted rules about politics here. And like I said, it's like the people who make the rules want to stay in charge, right? So when we had the primary, the Democratic Party approved 3 different people to go into the primary, and the Republican Party approved 2. So the primary goes through. Well, you know, you got 5 people. Guess what? The 2 Republicans came in the highest. And that's who most of the people voted for. And personally, I think, okay, those are your choices. But then the Democratic Party in Kitsap really wanted to have a Democrat run for the office. So the rules are that none of the 3 people who were on the ballot for the primary can run as a write-in. So they went around and asked a slew of people if they wanted to be the write-in, and nobody did until Mr. Riley decided that he wanted to do it. And so it's been pretty contentious. I mean, I've always been an independent until probably the last couple years. Trump really scared me, so I signed up for the Democratic Party, and now I get endless texts asking me for. You know, I think it's a fool's errand. I'm really nervous though that people might write in to Christine Rolfus's seat instead, and then all of a sudden we lose her as a county commissioner. And I I will not be voting for Daryl. Um, and I speak for myself. And if you choose that you want to, well, then good on you. But I, I just I think it's really a disservice to voters to say, well, even though these were your top two choices, we have to make sure we have somebody from the other party on. It's like we wanted to. We should just go to top two instead. Where
Mhm.
to me that's more fair, and that's what a lot of people advocate for. But here we have the top two, and it's like, nope, we gotta get somebody from the other party in.
Which,
So
the Democrats will still have the majority even
yeah,
if that Republican wins.
unless people
Um,
write in Christine Rolfus's and put Daryl's name there, then we could lose her.
mhm. And the community has spoken, right? I mean, folks voted and right now they seem to want a Republican in office.
Hmm.
Um, I think that there is, from what I understand how it was explained to me, that the write-in is such a long shot for that person to win. First
Absolutely,
off, it also does damage to them politically in the future should they wanna run again.
and it
Um
does damage to the whole community
Mhm.
because the next time somebody of color chooses to run, and people are going to look back and go, well, when Mr. Riley was writing, he only got whatever, if he doesn't win. And I just think it's a real disservice to the community. And I think there's people who are trying to play kingmaker in the Democratic Party. And let's face it, both parties do it. But right now it's like glaring that the local Democratic Party is, not going to sit back and let the people who live in South Kitsap decide, because it's so weird too. It's like everybody in South Kitsap got to vote in the primary, but everybody in the entire county get to pick.
Mhm.
So it could be like everybody on Bainbridge Island has white guilt, and all of a sudden they're voting for somebody that the people in South Kitsap, who is going to be represented by the new county commissioner, don't even have a vote in it. It's
I
just,
tell you that really, hits me from a respect perspective, right? It's this win at all costs,
mm,
and I watched the Democratic Party demonize Republicans, especially, we gotta make sure that Trump doesn't win. It's existential, right? It was existential last time, and it's existential this time, but you're doing many of the same things that you claim the right was doing, um,
well,
and
I still think Trump's an awful person, so I'm never voting for him. But I understand what you're saying.
right.
It's all of a sudden it's like, don't vote for him, he's a felon. But we want people who have left jail, left incarceration, worked hard to become a decent person to be a decision maker for us.
I'm
You
glad
know?
you brought that up. We have champions like Tara Simmons that's one of her main platforms is our folks coming back and being restored. Then I'm watching Democrats demonizing the same thing that many of them are advocating for. It's like, what are you guys doing? It's
Yeah,
bizarre.
yeah. I mean, there's a million reasons that I don't like Mr. Trump, but him being a felon, I could care less about that one.
Mhm. Well, and again, while I'm not a big fan, not a big fan, that's underselling it. When I have leaders send me texts that say, I'm a little concerned about retribution from Daryl, in regards to asking questions as a
Mhm.
voting member of the LD 23 last night. That's a concern, right? If people are feeling that way. However,
Yeah,
I think there's a racial component to this that the Democratic Party is not looking at in that they are using a black man to hopefully maybe beat the Republican Party. This isn't who you were looking for to run for the primary, but now he's a useful idiot to hopefully bail you out. It, I'm just
I
it's
don't
bad
disagree.
all the way around.
I don't disagree. And then plus, um, who are they to decide? You know, the voters are the ones who should be deciding, not some people who are in the leadership of the local Democratic Party who think they know better than the people who are voting or being represented, you know?
Yeah. And so there again, your vote does count. You think that it doesn't. And if the way that you know your vote counts is when they try so hard to get you to not vote or to
Yep.
vote for someone else. That's how you know your vote counts.
Yep. You got it.
Down ballot is so tremendously important. And while I would encourage you not to vote for him, I would encourage you to vote whether you vote for him or not. Vote your interest. That's what's important. Your interest, not someone else's interest. Uh,
You got it.
that is really the bottom line.
Well, hopefully when people are doing their write-in secret ballot, they vote how they really feel instead of feeling like they were intimidated by party leadership.
There's been a lot of bullying. I've gotten a lot of phone calls where folks are
Yeah.
being bullied. Oh, so you'd rather see the Republicans win than a black person, than this person, than a Democrat? It's just nasty work. It's insidious.
I
Um,
I rather see who the people of South Kitsap want to represent them.
right. Which is unfortunate too. Like you said, the whole county gets to make a decision for them.
Yeah, I don't get that. That to me is nuts. That
That's not democracy. That needs to be changed.
yes. And I think they need more county commissioners because 3 is not enough.
Oh, you know what? I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's a lot of work, right?
It's a lot of work plus
Huge county
very little representation, you
with
know.
different needs. We're
We
really spread out.
we have 250,000 people more or less in Kitsap County. So that means each of them is supposedly representing over 75,000 people.
Mhm.
Hey, there's just no way they can't do it.
Well, you know what?
They, they don't even know their district, you know.
Next month when you come on, can I ask you, let's discuss how we could go about advocating. How do people advocate for more commissioners, county commissioners?
All
What's that
right,
process look like?
I'll do some research.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We could talk about it or we could be about it. So get
That's
out
right.
there, stay informed. I will continue to share information with you. I want to give Jane the final word. I also want to give you your flowers. And your flowers are, being brave and being bold. I'm not advocating for people to come out of their comfort bubble if they do feel that they are in danger, either verbally or physically, and don't want to speak out. I have to respect it. But I really do respect those that they have an extra respect uh, when they can speak out and say, hey, no, I'm not voting for this person. This is the reason why. And they're not worried about retaliation or reprisal. So thank you for that, Jane, because I've fielded a lot of phone calls from powerful people that are terrified to speak out and say how they really feel.
I know. I know. And it's like, who took that power away from them? And I don't mean that a powerful person should have more, but they should have at least as much as everybody else. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people have been shut out of this. And it's bully tactics all around.
Yep. So I'll get that I'm anti-black and I'm a sellout and I'm this and that and whatnot, and bring it on.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
I
here
got
for
to.
it. So go ahead. Let me give you the final word.
Well, first, I really appreciate that we get to have this conversation every month and just talk about things that are important in our community and try to come up with new ways to make it work better for most of us. You know, we're not going to make it great for everybody, but at least we can make it better for some of us, you know, or more of us. So I really, really encourage you to please send in emails either to me directly or to City Council as a whole. And come to the Bremerton Food Line on Thursday, November 21st at 5 o'clock and bring something non-perishable with you. And I look forward to meeting you, and it's open to anybody who wants to come. It's not just District 4 folks.
Absolutely. Again, that is Monday, Thursday, November 21st at 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock, 5 to
5
6.
o'clock.
Yep.
All right. So come on down. Again, I put the emails up on the screen for you to reach out to Jane. As always, for Jane, I am Marwan. This is The Conduit. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.